Dad, before we go any further,
Thank you,
I know
Pops.
you were a big fan, and I think it's safe to say that anybody who spent 10 minutes around Scott Rolen was a big fan of Scott Rolen, and everybody who's ever been around him has to be absolutely elated that he got that phone call, the narrowest of margins, but he's in.
Well, it made my day, Thom. I really was very, very dubious about whether or not Scott was going to get enough votes in order to be a new inductee. And I'm thrilled to death that there are other people that recognize what a tremendous talent he was, not only as a player on the field, but what he did in the clubhouse. He's one of the greatest leaders that I've ever seen in a baseball uniform. And I'm just thrilled beyond words that the guy is going to be inducted into baseball's Hall of Fame, as he should be.
Dad, listen, I don't want to take anything away from Scott Rolen, but I mean, I am so worked up over a guy that I said on record I didn't even like as a guy. We had clashes all the time. Listen, we sat here yesterday, and I am in no form or fashion, when Tracy Jones was with us yesterday, I am in no form or fashion comparing Jeff Kent to Joe Morgan. But when you look at the offensive numbers that Kent put up in over 2,000 fewer at-bats, it is mind-boggling, the difference outside of stolen bases. I'm not making a comparison between the two. But, Dad, you know as well as I do how this thing works. You're given a list of people that are eligible for the Hall of Fame. For them to get a percentage, all you got to do is put them in your top 10. Of the guys that are eligible, they have to be on your top 10. You mean to tell me that Jeff Kent, of the top 10, these guys that are voting, 55% of them don't put him in the top 10 for this year? Who is voting on this?
You know who's voting on it. The Baseball Writers Association of America are the guys that vote on this. And a lot of those guys, I bet you they don't see 15 games a year, if that many. And the argument that I've made for the last 35 years, or maybe more than that, is the people who see more baseball than they do are more qualified to vote than most of them. Now, I'm not talking about all of them. Trent Rosecrans is a voting member, and Trent goes to the ballpark religiously. He sees a lot of baseball over the course of the year. But a lot of these members of that association don't see hardly any games at all. And yet they are one of two or three or four, however many of them, of the many who are sent out ballots because they are members and they're qualified to vote, in their opinion. The guys that see more baseball are the guys that broadcast the games, and they will not let us in. For whatever the reason, they won't allow us to be a part of the voting process. For whatever the reason, I'd love to know. But I've made this argument for years and years and years. We are more qualified as a group than the goodly number of guys that see 5, 10, 12 games a year, and yet they're voting on whether a guy should be in the Hall of Fame or not. Jeff Kent, and I've said for the last however many years, is the guy who should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame without any question. And I think a lot of guys that vote have personal feelings about certain players because they were rude to them, or they refused to give them an interview, or whatever the case might be. So that plays in, I think, to some of the approaches that some of these guys take. I think you need to judge a player based on what his on-field capabilities were. Obviously, if there's scandal involved in the guy's life while he's playing, that certainly is a factor. But my personal feelings, if I would never have a personal feeling enter into my decision as to whether or not a guy should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And I really believe that in some cases that exists, because Jeff Kent was not a very nice guy. Very few people liked him, including teammates. But as far as what he did as a player, his numbers certainly deserve to be there without any question whatsoever.
I just don't get, Dad, just like I don't get the thing about no player ever has been a unanimous selection for the Hall of Fame. This is absolute and utter ego. It's out of control ego for these guys or writers that are doing this stuff. Because I don't care if you're talking about Ken Griffey Jr., Tom Seaver, Johnny Bench, whoever it might. These are some of the highest percentage vote getters. They're in the very high 90s, but nobody 100%. Derek Jeter. That means, again, now, someone just wrote in the chat, there were only 28 guys because of the way they're whittling guys off the list. So you had 28 names, guys like Tim Wakefield and Bronson Arroyo, okay? You know, good careers. Arroyo had a great career. But it means that of the 28 you're voting on any given year, so that means that at least 1 or 2% of those guys, when they're voting for Ken Griffey Jr. or Johnny Bench, 1 or 2% of those guys are not even putting that player in their top 10 on that given year. I mean, you rub elbows with all these big wigs and highfalutin sorts at the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Do you ever hear anybody talk about changing this on who's able to vote?
I've never heard any inkling whatsoever of the possibility that they could change the way things have been since day one, I would imagine. I think that it needs to be looked at. But you see, the thing that a lot of people don't understand, Tom, the Baseball Hall of Fame has nothing to do, to my way of thinking, what little knowledge I have, with what the baseball writers do and how they go about doing it. Now, I think that, if they're not happy with the process, they could certainly voice their opinion, and maybe that would have something to do with maybe starting the ball rolling toward getting the process changed. But I've never heard any conversation whatsoever about, this whole thing has got to be reworked and rechanged to make it a bit more acceptable. What they need to do, and for whatever the reason they're scared to do, is to make everybody's vote public. I saw Thom Hardracourt, the former Milwaukee beat writer, who is now retired, and Thom is a member of the voting group, and he took a picture of his ballot and sent it in, and at the bottom of every ballot they said, we have the permission to release the results of your ballot. I don't know how many days after the announcement is made, and they 2 boxes at the bottom of that sentence, yes or no. And Thom typed, yes, you can release my voting public when the time comes. They should make that mandatory, because I think a lot of guys hide behind that. They don't put somebody who clearly deserves to be in the top 10 and maybe clearly deserves to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and they vote no for whatever the reason, but they don't want that released. And I think if you make these guys say, okay, guys, we're going to release every one of them. This is a new rule. Everybody's vote is going to be made public. Then we'll see how things work out, because these guys hide behind anonymity in a minute if they got a chance. And this is the biggest chance that they have in wielding some measure of power in determining who's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and know that they're not going to have to answer the question of why they didn't vote for so-and-so.
All right, more importantly, the most important topic of the day, the pictures your bride Amanda sent to us. We had asked and requested that upon your visit to Disneyland in California, which you're a big fan of, much bigger fan of Disneyland, and we said, how about Marty? Everybody, here you go. Well, he's got him on there now, but take a look at this picture. This is like the kind of thing that should be on the cover of Walt Disney World magazine, if there is such a thing. I mean, take a look at that. Then from behind, with the Magic Kingdom, the castle itself, Cinderella's castle in the background. And we wondered about the teacup.
My name on the back
still
of it.
have it going on. There you have it.
That's right.
You got the teacup.
Never let it be. Never let it be said that when you guys ask me to do something, I go the extra mile to entertain those people who watch your show. And so, to do what we did, what you didn't mention was when you took that shot from behind, is my name is on the back of that Mickey Mouse hat in script.
Oh my God, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah,
I was so mesmerized by
check
just
it
that
out.
shot. What's a famous photographer? Annie Leibovitz? Is that who that is?
Sure.
That looks like something you don't know.
Annie showed up to take this picture because it was for the podcast. Correct. Yes.
I mean, our chat is blowing up. They cannot believe it. Someone wants to know if you'll save that money from going to the Magic Kingdom and buy the Reds. Let me ask you this. Did you ride on the teacup ride? Because that's one of those deals where, it spins around, then around, then around. You don't want to take the kids on it right after they've eaten or something like that. Did you ride that ride?
No, we did not. I don't even know if they have it. They do. That was just a replica that we climbed in for picture-taking purposes. But believe me when I tell you that I've been on some hair-raising rides out here, pal. Believe me.
Really? Like what?
Yes.
Big Thunder Mountain.
Thunder Mountain, the Thunder Mountain Railroad, which is a roller coaster.
The Matterhorn.
The Matterhorn, which is and it's like a bobsled.
Tower Terror of the Drop. The Guardians of the Galaxy.
The Guardians of the Galaxy, which is really big time. We went.
Why
I've been
don't you
on
just
some
have
good ones out
Amanda
there.
answer the questions instead of you? Have her come around and answer.
Well, I
the
don't know the
questions.
name of the damn things. She just directs me to where I need to go, and if I'm a little bit of a ninny, I'll say no, I'm not going to ride that. Or if I feel like I'm adventuresome enough to climb in, I do it. And the first day we were out here Monday, I rode every single thing without exception that everybody else did.
Well, I tell you what.
Climbing on some death-defying contraptions.
Well, we can't thank you enough and Amanda enough for sending us those pictures. They were lights out. They are lights out. Casey, Paul, anything for the Hall of Famer? Yeah, he's got big plans today. He's got stuff going on.
What do you got, Paul? Let me hear it.
Me?
Is your name Paul?
I got big stuff going on?
No, I said Marty has big stuff going on. Do you have anything you want to
I
ask
was going to
him
say,
about?
I don't got anything going on. No, I got nothing for Marty. Casey?
I gotta know if you had what type of food you have there. Did you get the Mickey Mouse ice cream sandwiches, the Mickey Mouse pretzel? Like what did you get when you were there at Disney?
Well, yesterday we had a frozen banana,
Those
which
are
was
awesome.
really, really good.
Yeah, covered in chocolate,
We
right?
also have those those Rice Krispie treats. Well, they have them out here in Mickey's, the shape of Mickey's head, and they're good. But they have these cookies out here. What are those cookies, Amanda? Oh, the popcorn. Yeah, Magic Key popcorn.
Churro brittle.
Churros.
Churro brittle.
Yeah, those are good.
It might be the
Churros.
best cookies you will ever eat in your lifetime.
They are very delicious.
So I'm a big fan of yours.
And by the way, Everett keeps coming back, Dad. He keeps coming back, and he feels bad. He wasn't trying to trick you into what kind of guy Dumbledore is. He really feels bad about it.
Yes, he was. Huh?
He feels bad. He's been writing in all week about it.
That's too bad. He gets no second chances. I mean, he clearly tried to trick me. And not only that, Thom, the mere implication that Dumbledore was a bad guy is enough to piss anybody off.
Well,
and
here's what he says. Most
me.
recently, he says, nothing is as hair-raising as the horrible trials that Dumbledore put Harry through. Is that true or false?
That is true. However, there were reasons behind everything. I'm not going to argue with this clown over whether Dumbledore was a good guy or a bad guy. You heard Paul the other day talk about. They agreed with me that, granted, he put Harry through some tough situations, but there were always reasons behind what he did, and none of those reasons were nefarious in any sense of the word.
Okay. Well, I give it
rest
up
my
to Everett.
case.
He keeps coming back. He's not backing
That's
down on
because
this
he
team.
doesn't have a life. Tell him to
He
get a life.
He asked you a simple question, which you just acknowledged that is accurate.
Did he say that?
No, no. He just asked you the question, did the guy not put him in some situations which were dangerous?
And I said yes.
Okay.
And I said yes, and there were reasons every time he did that. He loved Harry.
There were mitigating
like
circumstances, right, Marty? Mitigating circumstances.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
I think we
This
should
guy
put
doesn't know what
together.
mitigating means.
I think we should put together a lunch. I'm not listening to that shit. All right. I think we need to put together a lunch when my dad gets back, if he ever gets back. He's out there in La La Land in California, and who knows.
I'm coming back tomorrow.
Okay, well, I think we got to put together a lunch with my dad and Everett, and all of us.
That's fine. You get Everett to see if Everett can come out of the basement of his mom and dad's house to go have lunch with us, and we'll make it happen.
All right, before we let you go, Brandon, you have something for my dad?
Well, I need some advice tonight. I'm hosting the LaSalle Stag. I'm seeing it like I've done the last 3 or 4 years. I'm not just dressed up for you and Marty. It is with Doug Flynn and Corky Miller I'll be with tonight. Any good stories about either one of those guys?
Ask Corky. I just left, Arizona, where he was at the Reds fantasy camp, and the man and I were out there for the week. Ask Corky, is there ever going to be a year, as far as the Reds fantasy camp is concerned, where his team can beat Brett Tomko's team? And Corky will try to act nonchalant about it, but it grates on his nerves like you cannot believe that he has faced Tomko a number of times, and he's not been able to beat him, especially in the championship game. And ask him about that. And also ask Doug Flynn, is it time to put those T-shirts away with his picture on them? That we've seen enough of the so-called, he calls himself the glue. Meaning he was the guy that held everything together in the Big Red Machine years. Not Betch, not Rose, not Morgan, not anybody but him. And he has these T-shirts that he wears of himself. And ask him, aren't they getting a little bit tired? And should you not put them away for all time?
The only thing I could add to that is if I could get one of those shirts in the next 4 to 5 hours before I go over there and whip it out in the middle of the monologue. That would be great.
Yeah, I don't know where you.
Yeah, that won't happen.
Cincy
That
shirts.
won't happen, Brandon.
They have them in Cincy shirts, my wife says.
Oh, there you go. Run on down there. You got pals down there.
Yeah. All right. Might have to make a trip before we go.
There you go.
Thanks for the
Good
advice,
luck
Marty.
on that, by
Call,
the way.
Brandon.
Thanks.
That's big time.
Let me know how those questions go over.
Will do.
We will do for sure.
All right, pal.
All right, Dad. Well,
Enjoy
safe travels back to Cincinnati, and then as soon as you get off the plane, you're jumping on board the Reds caravan, right?
Friday morning at 8:00. Yep.
And who are the 1 or 2 big names you're traveling with? David Bell. Who?
No, David Bell's not on my bus.
Okay. Anybody else?
Nick Kroll will be there.
Yep.
Jim Day will be there. Chris Sabo will be there. And a couple of Reds players whose names I'm not aware of right now. Current players.
Tell all those guys we said hello. And one final footnote just for the record. Everett says, Thom, thanks for standing up for me. And he says, I moved out of my mom's basement 10 years ago.
God bless you, Everett. God bless you, buddy.
We're going to make that lunch happen. Dad, safe travels. Thanks for the time.
All right, Thom. Good luck to you guys.